We left for DC on Sunday at 4 o'clock. After spending 16 hours on the bus, our first stop in DC was the Washington National Cathedral. In the National Cathedral, we saw beautiful stained glass windows. One of these windows was the space window. The space window commemorates the Apollo 11 mission, when a man first walked on the moon. A small moon rock sits at the center of the red sphere. There is an altar at the front of the church with Jesus at the center of the altar. After our lunch at the old post office pavilion, we went to Ford's Theater. During our tour of Ford's Theater, we heard a detailed story of the events leading up to Lincoln's assassination. The Peterson House is the house where Lincoln was brought to after he was shot on April 14, 1865. After Ford's Theater, we went to the National Archives. In this building, important documents are displayed, such as the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. Our second to last stop for the day was the FDR Memorial. Here we saw statues of FDR making his fireside chats and FDR in his wheelchair. The beautiful waterfalls represent the many difficulties he encountered during his terms. Our last stop of the day was the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. Here we saw a huge statue of Thomas Jefferson and saw some of his speeches and accomplishments he did during his term. After a good night's sleep, we went to the White House. After going through strict security, we were able to tour the White House. We saw the green, blue, and red rooms. After the White House, we went to Lafayette Park. Here we saw an enormous statue of Lafayette on his horse surrounded by cannons. After the White House, we went to the Supreme Court. Our next stop was Arlington National Cemetery, where we saw the graves of soldiers, the tomb of the unknown soldier, the changing of the guard, and one of our most famous presidents, John F. Kennedy's grave, and the eternal flame. Then after the cemetery, we went to the Iwo Jima Memorial, which is dedicated to the soldiers who fought on Iwo Jima. Our last steps for the day were the Vietnam Memorial, which is dedicated to the soldiers who fought in Vietnam, the Korean War Memorial, and the Lincoln Memorial, which is dedicated to our 16th President Abraham Lincoln. After breakfast on Wednesday, we traveled to Mount Vernon, which overlooks the Potomac River. This is the home of George Washington. After lunch, we went to the Library of Congress and the Capitol. After the Capitol and the Library of Congress, we went to the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. After dinner at the Reagan International Center, we went to the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, where we saw the Hall of Nations, the Grand Foyer, and the Hall of States. The final day of Washington, D.C., we went to the World War II Memorial, which is dedicated to the soldiers who fought in World War II. The wall has over 4,000 stars, 1 star for every 100 Americans who died in the war. The sentence under the star says, "Here we mark the price." We then went to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, where we saw space shuttles and airplanes, and we saw a movie about the Hubble Space Telescope. After lunch at McDonald's, we went to the Smithsonian Museum of American History. Here we saw a helicopter, Kermit the Frog, and a train. After the museum, we went to the Washington Monument, and we were able to go up to the top and see all of D.C. After the monument, we left for Janesville.